The streets of New York had a rhythm of their own. Neon lights flickered over puddles left by a brief evening rain, casting rainbow reflections that danced across the asphalt. Mila Winters pulled her coat tighter, her heels clicking against the pavement as she made her way home from her late shift at the diner. She loved her independence, loved the simplicity of her job. Yet, tonight, something about the city felt electric, dangerous even, like it was holding its breath. Mila's brown hair clung to her face as the wind tugged at it, and she tucked a strand behind her ear, unaware of the eyes following her from across the street. Luca Romano leaned against a black vintage car, hands casually in his pockets, dark eyes tracing her every movement. His presence wasn't loud, yet it was impossible to ignore. He was the kind of man the city whispered about in both fear and admiration. Powerful, dangerous, magnetic. Mila shivered. Not from the cold, she realized. Her heart picked up as she crossed the street, oblivious to the sleek black car inching closer in the lane beside her. A sudden honk snapped her from her thoughts. A car swerved, tires screeching. Before she could react, strong hands grabbed her from behind, pulling her to the curb, just as metal screamed inches from her heels. She gasped, eyes wide, adrenaline rushing. What? She stammered, looking up to find him standing there, the streetlights catching the hard lines of his jaw, the dangerous curve of his mouth. His dark hair was slicked back, his tailored black coat making him look like he belonged to a world far beyond hers. "You shouldn't walk alone here," he said, his voice low, commanding, yet smooth, like velvet, laced with steel. "I was fine," she stuttered, heart still racing. "You were about to be crushed," he replied, a small, knowing smirk tugging at his lips. He let go, but his eyes never left hers, as if measuring her, understanding her in a way that made her pulse quicken. Mila stepped back, suddenly aware of the intensity in his gaze. "Thanks, I guess," she said, trying to reclaim her composure. "Guess?" He tilted his head, amused, almost predatory. "I don't do guesses, Mila." Her breath hitched. How did he know her name? Panic and curiosity warred inside her, her instincts screaming to run, and yet her feet stayed rooted. He took a step closer, careful, deliberate. The air between them sizzled. "Listen, you're not supposed to be out here. Not tonight. Not without someone watching over you." Mila swallowed hard, her mind spinning. There was danger in his words, but also something else. An undeniable pull, an electric heat curling through her chest. I can take care of, myself," she whispered, more to convince herself than him. "I'm sure you can," he said, voice dropping to a near whisper. His hand brushed hers as he handed her a small black card. "But the world isn't always kind. Keep this. If you ever need protection." The corners of her lips twitched with disbelief. Protection? From who? Yet there was no denying the weight behind his words, the dangerous promise in his dark eyes. Mila clutched the card as he stepped back, letting her go. She watched him disappear into the shadows like smoke, leaving her trembling, both from fear and something far more intoxicating. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Who is he? She wondered. Fingers brushing the black card. Again. And why do I feel like my life just changed? A horn blared in the distance. The night swallowed the city's secrets once more. But one thing was certain. Mila Winters had collided with something she didn't yet understand. Something dangerous. Something irresistible. And as she walked the rest of the way home, her heels clicking against the wet pavement, she couldn't shake the thought that somehow Luca Romano was already a part of her. You don't belong out here alone, not tonight. The next night, the city felt heavier. Neon lights reflected in puddles again, but this time Mila's heart raced for a reason she couldn't name. The black card in her pocket burned against her skin as she walked past the familiar streets, hesitant yet curious. Something about Luca Romano, The way he had appeared, saved her, and disappeared, haunted her. Her curiosity led her, almost against her better judgment, to a towering brick building tucked between two high-rises. A discreet velvet rope marked the entrance, guarded by men whose presence was enough to warn most away. But she wasn't most people. Tonight her feet carried her forward, as if some invisible force pulled her toward him. Inside, the nightclub pulsed with life. Soft golden lights mingling with shadow, music wrapping around bodies like silk. She'd never seen anything like it. The air smelled of expensive whiskey and perfume and danger. And there he was, Luca Romano, leaning against the bar, black suit jacket fitted perfectly, dark eyes scanning the crowd. The moment he saw her, his gaze softened, and yet the edge remained. "Mila," he said, voice low, almost amused. "You came." She started, but he cut her off with a gentle wave of his hand. "Don't speak, just follow me." He led her through the crowd, their bodies close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. The music throbbed behind them, but in this world, there was only the sound of her own heartbeat. He stopped in a private office behind the club. The lights were softer here, warm, intimate. A desk cluttered with papers and ledgers hinted at the power behind the man, but it was the way he looked at her that left her breathless. "Why am I here?" she asked, trying to steady her trembling hands. "Because," he said, stepping closer, "you have a choice. You can stay in the world you know, or you can step into mine." Mila's eyes narrowed. "Yours?" He smiled, dark and dangerous. "I run this city's pulse, Mila, and I think you have something I need. But not just that. I think you have something you need too. Protection. Guidance. Opportunity." Her pulse quickened. His presence was intoxicating. Every word he spoke made her skin tingle, made her wonder if this was danger or desire, or both. "And what exactly do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "First," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering on her cheek, "I want you safe. Then, I want to see what you're capable of. If you accept, you'll work here, you'll learn, and I'll make sure nothing and no one hurts you." Mila swallowed hard, feeling the tension coil in her stomach. Every instinct screamed caution. Yet another part of her, one she didn't fully understand, thrilled at the thought. His words were dangerous, seductive, impossible to ignore. I don't even know what I'd be doing," she admitted. "You'll learn, and in time, you'll thank me for it." His lips curved in a slow, knowing smile. Now just trust me, that's enough." Her eyes drifted to the black card in her hand, the one he had given her. A symbol, a promise, and maybe a warning. "Think about it," he said, stepping back, giving her the space to breathe but never releasing the magnetic pull between them. "You have a choice, Mila, yours, but choose wisely." Her chest tightened. Every nerve in her body screamed yes and no all at once. As she left the room, the crowd's laughter and music hit her like a wave, but her mind was elsewhere, on him, on the world he had opened to her, and the dangerous, thrilling offer dangling just out of reach. One night here, and your life changes forever. The private office of the nightclub smelled of leather, polished wood, and something deeper, danger wrapped in luxury. Mila's fingers still brushed the black card in her pocket. The one Luca had given her. The card had become a magnet for her curiosity and desire, drawing her back to him, to this world she wasn't sure she belonged in. Luca leaned against his desk, arms crossed, eyes tracking her every movement. He didn't need to speak. The room hummed with unspoken tension. His gaze wasn't just assessing, it was consuming. "You're nervous," he said softly, almost teasing. "I am not," Mila whispered, though her voice betrayed her, slightly shaking. She could feel heat rising to her cheeks. "You are." His voice dropped, rich and smooth. and he stepped closer, closing the distance in a heartbeat. The warmth radiating from him pressed against her awareness, making her pulse spike. Mila swallowed hard, her hands gripping the edge of the desk for balance. I'm just... Careful, that's all. Careful? Luca's lips curved in a half smile, half smirk. Good. Careful gets rewarded in my world, but sometimes, he paused, tilting his head. Careful also gets challenged. He reached for her hand, not in command, not aggressively, but with a deliberate gentleness that made her stomach flip. His fingers brushed hers, tracing the line of her palm. Heat ignited at the contact, her breath catching. She started, but no words would come. His thumb swept lightly over her knuckles. Every nerve in her body seemed to awaken at the sensation. The world narrowed to his hand on hers, the quiet of the room, the way his dark eyes held hers like he could see into her soul. You're trembling, he whispered. Mila's chest tightened. It's nothing, she murmured, trying to pull her hand away, but she couldn't. Not really. Not when his touch anchored her in a way she had never experienced. Luca leaned just enough that their faces were close. The faint scent of his cologne, a mix of cedarwood and spice, filling her senses. Everything about you is new, he said, low, almost reverent. Every look, every hesitation, every heartbeat. And I want to learn it all. Her breath hitched at his words. They were intimate, private, impossible to ignore. Every instinct screamed caution, but another, deeper, darker, undeniable, pulled her toward him. She stammered. Her heart pounded, body reacting before her mind could catch up. He smiled softly, sensing her conflict, and let his hand linger, brushing her wrist with the gentlest pressure. Shh. You don't have to say anything. Just feel it. Just trust me for a moment. The world outside the office disappeared. The pulsing lights, the music, the city's chaos, all reduced to the heat of his hand on hers, the softness of his gaze, and the dangerous electricity crackling between them. Mila's breath slowed, her chest rising and falling as her pulse raced. She had never felt this simultaneous safety and risk. The pull of him was intoxicating, magnetic, and terrifying. Luca's other hand moved lightly to her elbow, guiding her closer. Not forcing, just leading, like he was charting the path her heart already wanted to follow. She looked into his eyes, words failing her, and whispered, almost instinctively, I've never felt this before. He tilted his head, voice dropping to a velvet whisper. Then let me show you. Gently. Just a first touch, Mila, that's all. A beginning. And as their hands intertwined fully for the first time, the tension, the danger, and the desire surged like a current neither of them could resist. The night was young, but the fire had already begun. The nightclub was alive. Lights pulsed like a heartbeat, low bass vibrating through the polished floors, the scent of expensive perfume and smoke mixing in the warm air. Mila stepped carefully through the crowd, feeling more out of place than ever, yet drawn in by a force she couldn't name. Every glance toward Luca Romano made her pulse quicken. He leaned against the bar, dark suit impeccable, commanding attention without trying. As soon as his eyes met hers, a subtle smile played at the corner of his mouth. He moved toward her with the effortless grace of someone who owned every room he entered. Yet tonight, it seemed he had eyes only for her. You look different tonight, he murmured, stopping just close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. Different how? Mila asked, heart thumping. Alive, he said softly. Like you're finally noticing the world isn't as small as you think. That there's more. And maybe, just maybe, a little danger waiting for you. She swallowed, suddenly aware of how thin the line was between thrill and fear. His gaze roamed over her, teasing, dangerous, yet full of admiration. Her chest tightened under his scrutiny. "Danger is enticing," she whispered, almost to herself, as if admitting it aloud made it real. His hand brushed hers lightly, sending sparks up her arm. "Careful," he said, low, eyes glinting. "You're playing with temptation, and temptation always demands a price." Mila's lips parted. Every nerve in her body was awake, tuned to his presence, his words, his touch. "And what price would that be?" she asked, voice barely above the music. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "Tonight, you decide. But I promise, whatever you choose, I'll make sure you never forget it." The nightclub blurred around her. The dancers, the crowd, the flashing lights, everything disappeared except Luca. Every movement he made, every slight tilt of his head, drew her closer to a line she wasn't sure she was ready to cross. "You're dangerous," she whispered, trying to steady herself. "And you're curious," he countered, his thumb brushing her wrist. "Curiosity can be exhilarating. Don't fight it, Mila, embrace it." A slow, deliberate step brought him so close, she could feel the heat of his chest against her arm. Her breath hitched, her mind spinning between caution and desire. He didn't push, didn't force, but the tension between them was electric, undeniable. "Do you always do this to women?" she asked, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "No," he said with a smirk, dark and teasing. "Only the ones worth noticing." The words wrapped around her like silk, warming her from the inside out. She wanted to step back, but the pull was too strong. She wanted to run, but curiosity, desire, and the dangerous thrill of Luca Romano held her in place. He traced the line of her jaw with his fingers, soft, gentle, yet claiming. "One night," he whispered, his lips almost brushing hers. "Just one night of understanding, of knowing what it feels like to surrender to temptation." Mila's heartbeat thundered in her chest. She wanted to say no, to walk away, but the electricity between them made her lips tremble, made her fingers itch for his touch. Everything about him pulled her in, his presence, his power, the danger, the promise. As he leaned in closer, the nightclub's chaos fading into nothing, she realized that temptation wasn't just waiting for her. It was standing right in front of her, dark eyes locked on hers, dangerous and impossible to resist, and she couldn't say no. The office was quieter than the nightclub, but the energy between them was electric, simmering like a storm ready to break. Mila's hands were clasped together, gripping the edge of the desk, as if it could anchor her against the whirlwind that was Luca Romano. His gaze, dark and unrelenting, followed her every move, not with accusation, but with curiosity and something deeper, something almost tender beneath the dangerous exterior. I don't usually do this," she whispered, her voice fragile, almost lost in the warmth of the room. "Do what?" His voice was low, intimate, a velvet murmur that brushed against her ears. "This," she said, gesturing vaguely between them. "Feel like this, like I'm vulnerable and I don't know how to handle it." Luca took a deliberate step closer, closing the distance between them, yet not pressing too far. "Vulnerability isn't weakness," he said softly. "It's honesty, and it's the first step to something real, something worth keeping." Mila swallowed, the lump in her throat making her words catch. I've never," she began, her cheeks flushing. "I've never let anyone in like this. Not like this. I've always had to be careful, strong, untouchable, because if I let my guard down, someone always hurts me." His expression softened, a rare tenderness appearing in the shadows of his eyes. He reached out, fingers brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "I won't hurt you, Mila. I can't. Not if you let me in. Not if you trust me." Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Every nerve screamed, telling her to step back. But her body betrayed her, leaning into his warmth, craving the comfort and the danger simultaneously. And if I'm scared? What if I can't trust you completely? Luca's smile was faint, almost imperceptible, but it carried the weight of a promise. Then we'll take it slow, he said. One step at a time. I'm not in a rush, Mila. Not with you. And trust. Well, it's earned, not demanded. But I have a feeling. You're going to teach me something, too. Her lips parted, a shaky breath escaping as her fingers twitched against her coat. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice a whisper. Scared of feeling this. Scared of wanting this. Scared of losing myself in you. And you should be, he murmured, stepping closer, his hand now resting lightly against her. Waist, not pressing, just existing. Because when you feel something like this, it changes you. But that change isn't always bad. Not with me. Her pulse raced, body and mind clashing in a storm of desire and fear. She felt exposed, raw, and alive. The vulnerability she'd hidden for so long, the fear she'd carried silently, was laid bare. And yet, she didn't recoil. She leaned just a little closer, drawn to him, pulled by something she hadn't expected, something she wanted. I don't know if I can, she murmured, voice trembling. You can, he said, firm but gentle, a steady anchor in the tempest of her emotions. Because you're not alone, not tonight, not ever, if you let me in. Mila's breath caught, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She had never felt anything like this, fear and desire, safety and danger, all wrapped into one person, one touch, one gaze, and for the first time she admitted it, to herself and to him. I want to trust you, she whispered. I want to try. Luca's hand slid to her cheek, fingers warm against her skin, thumb brushing over her lips ever so slightly, eliciting a shiver she couldn't hide. Then try, he said, voice husky, and I'll show you. It's worth it. In that moment, Mila Winters realized that giving in, just a little, wasn't weakness. It was the start of something that could consume her completely, and she was ready to let it begin. The office felt smaller tonight, warmer, charged. The soft hum of the city outside seemed distant, almost irrelevant. Mila's heartbeat thundered in her chest as Luca stood closer than ever, the warmth from his body brushing against hers. Every nerve in her body was alight, fear, excitement, desire, and anticipation all tangled together like a storm she couldn't control. You've never been kissed, Luca murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, but it struck her like thunder. Mila's cheeks burned crimson. She nodded, unable to look away from his dark, intense eyes. I didn't... Shh. He raised a finger gently to her lips, soft, protective. It's okay. Not everyone has. But I'll be gentle, I promise. Only what you want, nothing more. You control this. Her breath hitched, every instinct screaming caution, yet another part of her, dark, reckless, and hungry, yearned to surrender, to explore what danger and desire felt like wrapped into one man. Luca moved closer, close enough that she could feel his heartbeat against hers, his warmth, seeping into her bones, the scent of him, cedar, spice, something intoxicating, wrapped around her senses, pulling her deeper into a world she had only glimpsed. Are you sure? He asked, voice low, almost reverent. You don't have to. She nodded, trembling. I want to try. A small, almost imperceptible smile curved his lips. Good, because this is the start. And then, impossibly slow, he leaned forward. Their lips hovered a breath apart, and Mila's breath caught. The world outside ceased to exist. She felt every inch of him, every heartbeat, every brush of his warmth, magnified in the space between them. When their lips finally met, it was soft, tentative, almost fragile, a whisper of a kiss, gentle as promised, yet carrying a depth that made her knees weak. She pressed closer instinctively, responding to his warmth, his patience, his intensity. It was nothing like she had imagined, more powerful, more consuming. His hand cradled her face, thumb brushing over her cheek, guiding, comforting, claiming. Her hands rested against his chest, feeling the strength beneath the fabric of his suit. It was intoxicating, terrifying, perfect. "You're amazing," he murmured against her lips, breaking the kiss for only a moment. "Every moment with you is—" His voice faltered, raw, exposed. "I don't want it to end." Mila's fingers tangled in the lapel of his jacket. I feel the same," she whispered. "I've never felt like this before, not with anyone." He smiled, dark and slow, his eyes blazing with something dangerous and protective at once. "Then we'll take it further. Only when you're ready. Step by step. But know this. Once you feel it, Mila, there's no turning back." Her pulse raced, her lips still tingling from the kiss, body alive with electricity she had never known. She wanted more, and yet the careful control in his movements, his respect for her, pace, made her heart ache in a new way, longing and trust intertwining. She leaned into him, forehead against his, breath mingling, pulse synchronizing. I trust you," she whispered. Luca's hand moved to her waist, sliding gently down, anchoring her, grounding her, yet igniting the fire that had begun the moment he'd first touched her. "Then let this be our beginning," he murmured, lips brushing hers again, slower this time, more deliberate. The night outside the office faded completely. There was only heat, heartbeats, whispers, and the delicious, terrifying thrill of crossing the line, together. And in that single kiss, Mila Winters realized that some lines were meant to be crossed. The office was quiet now, but the night outside pulsed with life. Cars honking, music drifting, faintly from the club, the city breathing around them. Mila's fingers still trembled from their first kiss, her heart racing in a rhythm she didn't recognize. She thought the tension had been only between them, but Luca's next words shattered that illusion. "There's something you need to know," he said, voice low, serious, the playful glint from before, replaced by shadowed intensity. Mila's stomach tightened. What do you mean?" He stepped closer, but not in the same intimate way as before. His eyes darkened, holding secrets she couldn't yet touch. "My world, it's not like yours. I don't just run a club, Mila. I run operations that most people wouldn't even understand. Dangerous operations. And people will try to hurt you, use you, manipulate you. If they know you're with me, they'll come for you." Mila's breath caught. She had sensed danger in him from the very first night, but hearing it out, loud, seeing the weight behind his gaze, made her pulse spike with fear, and something, darker fascination. Why are you telling me this?" she asked softly, voice wavering. "Because you deserve to know," he said, his hand brushing against hers, gentle yet protective. "I won't hide the truth from you. Not anymore. You're not just some stranger I rescued. You're important. To me. And that comes with risks." Her chest tightened, and she felt the gravity of his words like a physical weight. I don't know if I can handle it," she whispered, the honest fear slipping past the walls she had built for so long. "You can," he murmured, cupping her face, thumb brushing her cheek. "Because I'll be with you. Every step, every danger. You won't face this alone." She studied him, searching the shadows of his dark eyes, the quiet intensity in his posture, the unspoken promise behind every word. The man in front of her was dangerous, unquestionably, so, but his danger wasn't only outside. It was woven into every careful movement, every calculated word. And yet somehow she found herself drawn to it. I think I understand, she said, trembling. Being with you. It's not just exciting. It's terrifying. And I want it anyway. Luca's lips curved into a small, almost tender smile. A rare softness that contrasted with his dangerous aura. Good, he said. Because this isn't a game, Mila. Once you step fully into my world, there's no turning back. But if you choose me, I'll make it worth every risk. Her pulse raced faster, every instinct screaming caution. Yet another part of her, a part she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Thrilled at the danger and intimacy entwined in this moment, he leaned in, forehead resting against hers, breath mingling. I won't let anyone hurt you, he whispered, voice husky. I don't care who they are. You're mine, Mila, and I'll protect that, at any cost. Her lips parted, her body responding in ways she didn't fully understand. She had entered a world she had only glimpsed in novels or movies, a world of power, danger, and desire. And she was standing in the eye of the storm, heart and body completely entangled with the man at its center. Then, I trust you, she whispered, her hands brushing over his chest, anchoring herself to him, surrendering not just to desire, but to the reality of his world. Luca smiled darkly, a promise in his gaze. Good. Because from now on, you're part of it, Mila. Part of me, and nothing will ever be the same again. The city outside might have been alive, but inside that office, danger, desire, and trust had collided, and Mila Winters knew she was already in too deep to escape. The city outside had quieted, leaving only the distant hum of traffic, the occasional siren, and the subtle whisper of the wind through the streets. Inside Luca Romano's penthouse, the world was smaller, warmer, more dangerous, and entirely theirs. Mila's fingers fidgeted with the edge of her coat as she stood in the doorway, heart hammering, like a drum she couldn't control. The lights were dim, soft, bathing the room in a golden glow that made shadows dance along the walls. Luca leaned against the doorway, his presence filling the space effortlessly. His dark eyes never left hers, piercing, intense, consuming. You came, he said softly, a dangerous smile playing at his lips. I wanted to, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Her heart thudded in her chest, a mix of fear, anticipation, and desire. But this is also new. He stepped closer, the air between them crackling with tension. Everything new is frightening at first, he murmured, voice low, intimate. But frightening can also be thrilling. Her pulse quickened at the sound of his words. She had never felt desire like this. Electric, all-consuming, wrapped tightly with trust she was only beginning to understand. Luca reached for her hand, brushing his fingers against hers with deliberate care. Tonight, he said, is about you, about us, about understanding what we can give each other gently, one step at a time. Mila's breath hitched. Her pulse pounded in her ears, every nerve alive. She nodded, letting him guide her toward the plush seating area. Every movement he made was slow, intentional, yet powerful, commanding attention without force. Do you trust me? He asked, voice husky, eyes dark with desire and something softer beneath the surface. I think so, she whispered. Her voice trembled, betraying her nerves and excitement. I want to. Good, he smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face, fingers lingering against her cheek. Because tonight, we explore. Gently, carefully, but truly. And I promise, you will feel everything you've ever wanted to feel, and nothing you're not ready for. Her chest tightened, body responding before her mind could fully process it. She leaned into him slightly, drawn to the warmth and strength emanating from him. His gaze softened as he observed her, reading every hesitation, every tiny flicker of desire. Step by step, he guided her to sit beside him. Their shoulders brushed, fingers intertwined, and the small contact sent a shiver down her spine. Luca's thumb traced lazy patterns on her hand, deliberate, intimate, claiming, yet protective. I've never, Mila began, words catching in her throat. I've never felt like this before. So exposed, yet safe. You're safe with me, he said firmly, voice low, resonant. You can let yourself feel, Mila. Let yourself be taken care of, wanted, cherished. No one else, only me. Her breath hitched as he leaned closer, lips brushing against her temple, then lingering near her jaw. Every gentle touch ignited heat along her skin, her nerves screaming with anticipation and longing. She wanted more, craved it, yet every fiber of her being was alert, responsive, alive. Luca's hand slid to her waist, guiding her closer, anchoring her against him as he whispered, "You belong here with me." Her lips trembled, eyes closing as her hands rested lightly on his chest. I think I do, she murmured. And in that moment, the dim glow, the quiet city, the warmth of their bodies, their first night, together began. Not rushed, not forced, but intentional, sensual, and deeply emotional. Each glance, touch, and whisper carried weight, promise, and fire. Tonight, Mila Winters discovered desire intertwined with trust, and the storm of passion she had feared became the home she never knew she wanted. The morning sun barely touched the city streets, casting long shadows across the alleyways. Below, inside the penthouse, Mila sipped her coffee, the warmth barely penetrating the chill that had settled over her since last night. The memory of Luca's hands, his lips, the way he had made her feel. It was still alive, tingling under her skin. But the world outside their intimacy was unforgiving, and tonight, she would see just how dangerous Luca's world could be. A soft knock echoed through the apartment. Mila's heart skipped, instinct warning her before her mind could catch up. She turned to see Luca entering, his suit replaced by a more casual black shirt, sleeves rolled up. His presence alone was enough to steady her, but the tension in his eyes made her pulse spike. "Something happened?" she asked, voice hesitant, fingers brushing the edge of the countertop. He shook his head slightly, expression unreadable. "Not yet, but it will if we don't act carefully. There are people in this city, people who don't like me protecting what's mine." Mila's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" Luca's gaze softened briefly before darkening again. "A rival crew. They've noticed you, Mila. They know you're important to me, and they won't hesitate to use that against you." Fear prickled along her spine, her pulse racing. "Use me? How?" "Threats, intimidation. They'll try to exploit your curiosity, your trust. Anything to get to me," he said, voice low, dangerous. "But I warned you, didn't I? My world isn't safe." Her breath caught. She had sensed danger in him before, but hearing it confirmed, realizing she was now a target, made her heart pound faster. And yet, another part of her, a darker, thrilling part, felt alive with adrenaline. "You don't have to worry about me," she whispered, trying to steady herself. I can be careful." He stepped closer, tilting her chin up gently, his eyes locking onto hers. "I don't want you careful. I want you safe, and to be safe, you need me." Mila's pulse raced as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And what if I want more than just safe?" she asked softly, a tremor in her voice betraying her nerves and desire. He smiled, dark and slow, his hand sliding to her waist. "Then you'll have it," he murmured. "But only with me, no one else. Because anyone who touches you, without me knowing, won't live to regret it." Her breath hitched at the intensity, the protective possessiveness, the raw danger in his words. Part of her wanted to pull away, scared by the power he wielded. But another part, deep, primal, thrived on it, trusting him completely, wanting the fire that came with danger and desire intertwined. I trust you, she whispered, fingers brushing over his chest, seeking the anchor he always provided. Good, he said, voice low and steady, leaning closer. Because this threat, this danger, it's real, but so are we. And if we face it together... He paused, thumb brushing her lips lightly. Nothing can break us. Mila's lips parted, heart racing. Every instinct screamed caution, every nerve tingled with excitement. For the first time, she truly understood the stakes, not just her desire, but her life entwined with his. Luca pressed a fleeting kiss to her temple, a promise and a warning. You belong to me, Mila, and I won't let anyone take that from us. Outside the city, danger was closing in. Inside, desire, trust, and love were burning brighter than ever. And Mila Winters knew she was caught in a storm that could destroy her, or make her feel more alive than ever before. The night air was thick with tension, the city below buzzing unaware of the storm that had settled above it. Mila's apartment felt suddenly small, almost fragile against the shadow that had crept into her life. She hadn't expected danger to follow her inside, but in Luca Romano's world, it never stayed outside for long. Stay behind me, Luca said, voice low, smooth, dangerous. His hand gripped hers, not too tight, but enough to anchor her as they stepped into the hallway. Mila's pulse hammered in her chest. What's happening? She whispered, glancing around the dimly lit corridor. You'll see, he murmured, eyes scanning every shadow. His gaze was sharp, calculated, every movement precise. Nothing touches you while I'm around. Fear and excitement tangled inside her like a live wire. She wanted to protest, to argue that she could handle herself. But the truth was, she didn't feel the need to. With him, she felt untouchable, safe. Yet every step carried the thrill of danger, the knowledge that the city beyond their walls was full of men who underestimated Luca Romano, and paid dearly for it. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the stairwell. Two men, their intentions clear in the way they carried themselves, fast, predatory. Luca's hand tightened slightly on hers, just enough to ground her. Stay behind me, he repeated, almost a growl now. Time seemed to stretch. The men didn't notice her, only him, danger drawn to danger. In a fluid motion, Luca moved, each step deliberate, lethal, and graceful. One man lunged, and Luca was already there, catching the attack, redirecting force with terrifying precision. A dull thud, groan. The encounter lasted less than a heartbeat, yet Mila felt every second as though it stretched into eternity. Her heart raced as he turned to her, dark eyes blazing. Are you okay? He asked, voice low, controlled yet laced with something protective, intimate. I am, she whispered, voice shaking. She had seen violence before, but not like this. Not so precise, so cold, so calculated. And not without him. He stepped closer, wrapping an arm around her waist, holding her flush against his chest. No, one hurts you, he murmured against her hair. Not tonight, not ever. You're mine, Mila. And anyone who tries, they won't live to regret it. Her pulse raced, body alive with a mix of fear and something far more primal. Desire, attraction, the intoxicating pull of his power. She leaned into him, letting the warmth and security of his presence wash over her. You protect me, she whispered, voice trembling. Even from things I didn't even see. Coming, he tilted her chin up gently, fingers brushing along her jawline, thumb caressing her lips. I will always protect you, he said, voice husky, low, and intimate. But protection isn't just about keeping danger away. It's about keeping you close, letting you feel safe, letting you know that you belong to me." Her lips parted, breath shallow. The heat of his body, the intensity in his gaze, the unshakable certainty of his words. It overwhelmed her. Desire, trust, and fear fused into one heady, intoxicating pulse. I trust you," she whispered, voice barely audible. He smiled, a dark, possessive curve of his lips, and pressed a gentle kiss to her temple. "Good. Because I'll always be here. Always." Outside the penthouse, the city teemed with threats. Inside, desire, trust, and protection had collided. Mila Winters was caught in the eye of Luca Romano's storm, and for the first time in her life she felt completely, utterly safe. The city slept unaware, but the shadows had not gone. Danger still lingered, circling like predators in the night. Mila had never felt fear like this, not since the first night she'd crossed into Luca Romano's world. But tonight, fear wasn't the only thing filling her chest. It was the weight of knowing how much he risked for her. Luca stood by the window of the penthouse, dark eyes scanning the streets below. His jaw was tight, a muscle flexing with tension. Mila watched him from the couch, heart aching at the sight of him carrying burdens she had only begun to glimpse. "Why do you do it?" she asked softly, voice trembling. "Why put yourself in danger for me?" He didn't turn immediately. His hands rested on the windowsill, broad shoulders tense. Finally, he looked at her, and she saw something she rarely did. Vulnerability behind the power, the danger, the control. "Because you're mine," he said simply. Not possessively, not arrogantly, but with the weight of truth. "And I can't. I won't let anyone hurt you. Not ever." Mila's lips parted, a lump forming in her throat. "But the threats, the men, the everything. You could get hurt, you—" "I know," he interrupted softly, stepping closer, his voice low, resonant. "And I accept that. Because keeping you safe is worth any cost. You have no idea how much." Her hand trembled as she reached for his, brushing against his knuckles. "I don't want you to risk yourself. Not for me." He cupped her face gently, fingers warm against her skin, thumb brushing over her lips. "Mila," he murmured, voice husky, intense, "you already trust me. You already care. And that makes me fight harder, make me sacrifice more. You are worth it. Every risk, every danger, it doesn't matter." Tears welled in her eyes. Not from fear, but from the raw intimacy of his words, the gravity of the man standing before her. He wasn't just her protector. He was willing to lose himself to ensure her safety. "Luca, Her voice broke, lips trembling. "I can't. I don't know if I can—" "You can," he whispered, leaning in until his forehead rested against hers. "You're stronger than you think. And tonight, I'll make the first sacrifice. But it won't be yours, Mila. It will be mine. For you." Her breath hitched, body and heart responding to the gravity in his words, the closeness, the warmth, the promise. She reached up, fingers tangling in his hair. I don't want you to do this alone." "I'm never alone," he said, a rare, almost gentle smile brushing his lips. "Because I carry you with me. Every heartbeat, every thought, every move. I carry you. And tonight, that's enough." To face anything, she pressed herself closer, feeling the weight of him, the danger, the passion, the undeniable truth of his sacrifice. I don't know what I'd do without you," she whispered. "You'll never have to find out," he said, lips brushing her temple. "Because I'm here, always. And if the world wants to threaten you, they'll have to go through me first." Mila's fingers clutched his jacket, heart pounding, breath catching. In his eyes, she saw the storm he faced, the danger he embraced, and the love he carried for her. Tonight she understood it fully. Luca Romano's sacrifice was more than protection. It was Proof of everything he felt, everything he'd give, everything he'd risk. For her. The city lights flickered outside the penthouse windows, casting a warm, golden glow over the room. Mila sat on the edge of the couch, knees tucked close, heart still racing from the nights. Tension and Luca's relentless protection. The air between them felt thick, heavy with unsaid words, lingering touches, and emotions they had both been dancing around. Luca leaned against the balcony railing, dark eyes tracing the skyline, jaw tense. He didn't speak at first, but the silence wasn't empty. It was charged, full of everything neither had dared to say aloud. Finally, he turned to her, every movement deliberate, every glance weighted. "Mila, I need to tell you something," he said, voice low, resonant, almost vulnerable in a way she rarely saw. Her heart skipped. "What is it?" she whispered, breath trembling. He stepped closer, bridging the distance, until she could feel the warmth radiating from him, the subtle scent of cedar and spice wrapping around her senses. "I've tried to keep it in check, tried to focus on protecting you, keeping you safe, keeping the danger at bay, but it's more than that." Her pulse quickened, anticipation coiling in her chest. "More than?" she asked softly. "More than desire," he said, voice husky, fingers brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "More than attraction, more than need. I'm in love with you, Mila, completely. And every day I spend with you, every moment I protect you, every touch, every kiss, it just proves it, more." Mila's breath caught. She felt heat rise to her cheeks, nerves tingling with both shock and the undeniable truth in his eyes. You're serious?" she whispered, voice trembling. "All of this, the protection, the danger, it's not just control, not just obsession." "No," he said firmly, stepping closer until his chest was barely an inch from hers. "It's not control. It's not obsession. It's love. Pure, unrelenting, dangerous love. And it's for you. Only you." Her lips parted, tears threatening, heart pounding in a rhythm she had never felt before. I don't know what to say," she admitted. "I've never been told that like this. Not with someone. Not with anyone." He tilted her chin gently, holding her gaze, voice soft but certain. "Then don't say anything. Just feel it. Feel how much I care, how much I want you, how much I'll do for you. Always." Her hands trembled as they rose to his chest, fingers brushing over the fabric of his shirt, feeling the strength beneath, the heat, the closeness. I think I love you too," she whispered, heart exposed, vulnerability shining through her fear. Luca's dark eyes softened, and for a rare moment, the dangerous aura melted into something intimate, something almost fragile. "You have no idea," he murmured, pressing a slow, deliberate kiss to her forehead, then her temple, lingering with promise. "You're everything to me, Mila. Everything I've wanted. And more than I ever imagined I could have." Her lips curved into a shaky, emotional smile, fingers brushing along his jaw, feeling the intensity, the power, and the tenderness all at once. "I never thought I'd feel this safe and this alive at the same time." He held her close, lips brushing hers lightly, whispering, "That's the point, Mila. You're mine, but not in a cage. You're mine because I love you. And nothing, no danger, no threat, no force in this city will ever change that." And in that confession, the walls between desire and love, fear and trust, protection and surrender finally fell. Mila Winters realized she had given her heart completely to Luca. Omano, the penthouse was quiet, but the air felt heavy, charged with unspoken truths. Mila sat on the edge of the couch, her hands folded tightly in her lap, mind racing. Luca had stepped out briefly, promising to handle something urgent, leaving her alone with her thoughts. But she couldn't stop thinking about everything he had done for her. She remembered the men in the stairwell, how effortlessly he had neutralized them without hesitation, his every move precise, deadly, and controlled. She remembered the nights of whispered warnings, the constant vigilance, the way he had carried the weight of threats, danger and power all to protect her. A slow exhale escaped her lips. I didn't realize, she whispered to herself. Her chest ached with recognition. It wasn't just the kisses, the touches, the heat between them. It was every sacrifice, every moment he had risked his life for her safety, his world wrapped around her like a shield. When Luca returned, his coat draped over one arm, eyes dark but softening as he saw her expression. She finally looked up. Luca, I get it now, she said softly, voice trembling. I understand why everything you do for me, why you're so intense, so protective. He stepped closer, his presence filling the room, dark, magnetic, and reassuring all at once. Do you? He asked, voice low, intimate. Because it's not just instinct, Mila. It's not just desire. Every move I make, every risk I take, it's because you matter. More than anyone has ever mattered. Her hands rose to his chest, pressing against him as if to anchor herself. I see it now, she murmured. The danger, the nights you risked yourself, the secrets you carried, all for me. And I don't know if I can ever repay you. You don't need to, he said softly, fingers brushing her cheek. You never could. I don't do this for repayment. I do this because I love you. And love doesn't keep score, Mila. It doesn't ask for thanks. It just acts, protects, sacrifices, and yes, claims. Her pulse quickened, breath catching at the word, at the weight behind it. She had felt his possession before, but now it was different. Less about control, more about devotion, trust, and the willingness to put everything on the line for her. I thought I understood love, she whispered, lips trembling. But this, what you've done, what you continue to do, it's beyond anything I imagined. It's real. He smiled faintly, dark and possessive, yet softened by the vulnerability in her eyes. That's because it is real, Mila. You're the first person who's ever mattered to me more than everything else, and I'd rather risk it all than see you harmed. That's the truth. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She leaned into him, wrapping her arms around his neck, feeling the weight of him, the warmth, the unwavering strength. I see you, Luca. Every part of you. And I love you. For everything you are. Everything you've risked. Everything you've given me. His lips hovered near her temple, breath warm against her skin. And I love you, Mila Winters. Not just the moments, not just the desire, but every heartbeat you've ever entrusted to me. Every thought, every fear, every spark of your trust. She pressed her forehead to his, breath mingling, heart beating in sync with his. The realization hit her fully. Love wasn't just the passion or the kisses. It was sacrifice, protection, devotion, and he had given all of it to her without hesitation. In that quiet moment, Milo Winters understood. Luca Romano's love was not just possession, it was a life-altering, soul-deep promise, and she was his completely. The New York night pulsed like a living thing. Lights shimmered off black cars lined outside the private rooftop venue, where the city's most Powerful figures gathered under soft gold lighting and whispered deals. This wasn't a nightclub. This was where power dressed well and spoke quietly. Mila stood beside Luca as the elevator doors slid open. Her heart thudded. She had dressed carefully, simple, elegant, nothing loud. A silk black dress, bare shoulders, hair falling loose down her back. She wasn't trying to be seen. But the moment she stepped out beside him, every head turned. Luca Romano didn't walk into rooms. He arrived. His hand rested at the small of her back. Not possessive, not forceful. Steady, assured. A silent promise that she was not alone in this world of wolves. She leaned slightly toward him, voice low. "Are you sure I should be here?" He didn't slow. "You're exactly where you belong." The crowd parted instinctively. Men nodded, women watched. Conversations lowered as they passed. Mila could feel the weight of eyes tracing her, measuring her, wondering who she was. She felt exposed. Then Luca stopped. A man stepped forward, slick suit, polished smile, the kind that never reached the eyes. "Romano," he said smoothly, "didn't know you were bringing company tonight." The pause was deliberate. The implication was clear. Mila's breath tightened. Luca didn't respond immediately. Instead, he shifted, just enough to place himself half a step in front of her, not hiding her, framing her. His voice was calm, controlled, deadly in its certainty. "She's not company." The room felt like it inhaled. Luca turned his head slightly, just enough for Mila to hear him breathe. Then he said it. Not loud, not angry, not rushed. "She's mine." 2 words. That was all. No threat, no explanation, no apology. The effect was immediate. The man's smile vanished. His eyes flicked, down, away, before he stepped back. "Of course," he muttered. "Didn't realize." No one questioned it. No one ever would. Mila's chest burned as realization slammed into her. This wasn't ownership born of control. This wasn't dominance for display. This was recognition. A line drawn in public stone. She looked up at Luca, her voice barely a breath. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said quietly. They moved again, but everything had changed. People no longer looked at her with curiosity. They looked with understanding, respect, distance. When they reached the edge of the terrace, overlooking the glowing city, Mila finally turned to him. Her eyes shimmered, not with fear, but something deeper. "You just marked me," she whispered. His thumb brushed the inside of her wrist, slow and grounding. "No," he said. "I acknowledged you," she swallowed, to everyone. "To the world," he corrected. Silence stretched between them, filled with the hum of the city and the weight of what he'd done. "You know what that means," she said softly. "Yes. You've made me a target. I made you untouchable." Her breath hitched. Luca leaned closer, his voice low enough that it belonged only to her. "No one here will test that claim, and anyone outside this room who does answers to me." She searched his face, expecting arrogance. She found devotion. "Why?" she asked. His forehead touched hers. "Because love that hides isn't protection, and you deserve to be claimed openly, without fear." Her hand slid into his jacket, fingers curling into fabric over his heart. "Then don't ever let go," she whispered. A rare smile touched his lips. Dark, quiet, final. "Never." And as the city burned bright below them, Mila Winters understood something irreversible. She hadn't been taken. She had been chosen. The city was quieter from up here. New York stretched endlessly beneath them. Millions of lives, millions of stories. But for the first time, Mila felt like the noise no longer reached her. Luca's presence wrapped around her like a boundary the world couldn't cross. They stood alone on the terrace now. The crowd had drifted back into their careful conversations, giving space, respecting the mark that had been made. Mila leaned against the railing, the cool night air brushing her skin. "You changed everything tonight," she said softly. Luca didn't look away from the skyline. "Good." She turned to him. "You didn't just say words. You rewrote my place in your world." He finally faced her. "No," he said. I rewrote my world around you. Her breath caught. There was no performance in his voice, no dominance for show, just truth, steady and unflinching. I spent my life building walls, Luca continued. Power, control, distance. They kept me alive. But you... His fingers lifted, brushing the curve of her jaw. You walked through them without even trying. Mila's voice trembled. I was scared of you at first. I know. I thought loving someone like you meant losing myself. And now? She stepped closer, resting her hands against his chest. Now I know it means being seen, protected, chosen. His hand slid to her waist, firm but gentle, grounding. I won't cage you, he said quietly. I won't dim you. The only promise I make is this. Nothing touches you unless I allow it. Nothing threatens you without answering to me. She searched his eyes. And when I'm strong on my own? A slow smile curved his lips. Then I stand beside you instead of in front. Emotion swelled in her chest, heavy and warm. I've never had anyone promise me a future without trying to own it. Luca leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. I don't want your future, Mila. I want to build one with you. The city lights reflected in his eyes as he spoke the words that mattered most. No secrets between us, no disappearing, no half-truths. If you stay because you choose me, every day. Her heart hammered. And if I ever walk away? His thumb brushed her lower lip, tender. Then I let you. Loving you means trusting you. Silence fell, but it wasn't empty. It was complete. Mila rose onto her toes and kissed him. Not rushed, not desperate. Slow. Certain. The kind of kiss that wasn't asking for permission anymore. When she pulled back, her voice was steady. Then I choose you, Luca Romano. Something shifted in him then. Something permanent. He drew her into his arms, holding her as if memorizing her weight, her warmth, the reality of her. And I choose you, he murmured. In every city, in every storm, in every version of the future. She smiled against his chest. You know this won't be easy. I don't want easy. She laughed softly. Of course you don't. They stood there as the night deepened, two silhouettes against the endless city. Not hiding. Not running. Claimed but free. Protected but powerful. And somewhere below, New York kept moving, unaware that one quiet promise had changed. Everything. Because love didn't soften Luca Romano. It focused him. And Mila Winters didn't lose herself to his world. She became its center. This was just a glimpse into the world of Luca Romano and Mila Winters. A world of danger, desire, and devotion that will keep your heart racing until the very last second. Did you feel every heartbeat, every kiss, every risk they took for love? If their story made your heart skip, if you've ever believed love can survive even the darkest worlds, leave a heart in the comments and tell us what you think. And don't miss the next chapter. Subscribe now and turn on the notification bell.